Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Today, I'm going to go over a couple of crypto projects that I recently added to our PIF crypto portfolio, and I wanted to share with subscribers. So, without further ado, let's get started. Before I start, if you appreciate these types of videos, make sure to leave a like. I'd really appreciate that. And also remember that this is not financial advice. Make sure to do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. I should also say that crypto in particular is especially risky. So make sure you're not investing money that you can't afford to lose. So just a broader overview of the crypto market. Right now, we are in neutral territory after being in greedy and sometimes extremely greedy territory for the past 3 months. So historically speaking, right now is a better time than it has been in the last 3 months to start investing in crypto, or if you haven't been buying as much, I think right now is a more opportune time for you to start buying. A lot of times I get questions about, hey, is it too late when we're in greed and extreme greed territory? And I say, hey, you should have just been dollar cost averaging. And the best time to start is yesterday. However, now that we're in neutral territory, I think a lot of people who perhaps have been putting off getting started, especially as it relates to buying Bitcoin, which is, I think, the safest crypto asset. Uh, Especially as it relates to buying that, a lot of people in the last, I guess, bear market were waiting for even lower numbers. They were waiting for 10,000. They were waiting for 8,000. And then when it went from 20 to 30 and then from 30 to 40, they started panicking and they reached out to me, hey, what should I do now? I'm like, just dollar cost average. Continue the dollar cost average. Do not try to time the market. And when things are looking less frothy like they are right now and we're in neutral territory, I think being more aggressive with your buying is the way to go. All right, so the market cap expectedly has declined in the very short recent history. After the BTC ETFs came out, there was a lot of selling from people who were waiting for that trade, basically riding the run up until the BTC ETF announcements, and then they just sold. So they weren't really in it for the long run. And then you had a lot of GBTC holders who were put off by the high management fees of GBTC, 7 to 8 times the lowest management fee on the market. So they were moving out of GBTC. So that created additional selling pressure. And then you also had FTX. Their trust, basically the trust of the victims, is selling a bunch of FTX's holdings. I think that selling is done. The FTX selling is done. But the GBTC drainage is still going on. It'll probably still go on for the next week or two. So there was a pullback in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is a Veblen product. Basically, the higher the price of Bitcoin, the more people become attracted to it, as is evidenced by the anecdotal evidence that I shared with you, where people are asking more about it, the higher in price it goes. And then in periods when it's dropping in price, people stop asking about it. That level of excitement for it and demand for it starts to decline. So it reinforces its direction in either direction, basically. Whether it's going up, tends to reinforce the upward momentum, and when it's going down, it tends to reinforce the downward momentum. And that's why that's one of the reasons why the movements tend to be very sharp. And another reason why it's very risky to try to time the market, because it only takes a day or two or three or four that you're out of the market to miss out on a couple years worth of gains. So it may be choppy sideways for a year or two, And then you get all your gains in a very short period of time. If you're not in the market, you miss it. Now, one of the things that, and this sort of underpins my selections for today in terms of cryptos that I added to our PIF portfolio, one of the things that I've noticed is that, whether the market is going up or it's going down, the volume of trade tends to increase with time, and it tends to not be attached to a bull market or a bear market. It's almost market agnostic. It's more attached to how sharp the sentiment is. Is it sharply bullish or sharply bearish? And you can see this from the recent movements in the market. So even though, as we saw, sentiment was down, the market cap was down, but the volume is actually trending upwards recently. And so that led me to the idea of, hey, what are some projects that I can benefit, that will benefit regardless of if the market is going up or down, and regardless which decentralized application ends up winning out. And this led me to decentralized exchanges. Now, which decentralized exchanges should, because that's where a lot of the trading happens, on decentralized exchanges. And so to choose which decentralized exchanges I wanted to add to our portfolio, obviously, number one, they have to be halal. They can't be doing something that I'm opposed to, uncomfortable with from a halal perspective. Number two, they have to be on a chain that is going to allow them to provide fast transactions cheaply in a secure way. And to find that chain, I thought that this research report that was done by Vanek a couple months back, comparing Solana with other layer one solutions, was quite informative. So you can see Solana in terms of throughput, so the speed of transactions, really has everyone else beat by a pretty wide margin. And then you have the Fire Dancer upgrade that's scheduled to happen, is going to basically cause a 10x in the amount of throughput that Solana can handle. And so based on this and some other factors that perhaps I'll go through in a Solana deep dive, I've decided that, Solana seems like the potential winner here in terms of layer one solutions, especially as it relates to solutions for decentralized exchanges. Because as an exchange, what do you want? You want fast transactions, you want them cheaply, and you want them in a secure fashion. And Solana seems to provide that. So I went to Solana to see what the trading volume was like, and if my theory was actually carrying any water. And it turns out that Solana is in December at one point, it actually beat out Ethereum in terms of volume on its decentralized exchanges. But also, on a more long-term basis, it does seem like Solana is catching up with Ethereum in terms of overall volume on decentralized exchanges. And if you look at, for example, the last 24 hours or the last 7 days, roughly half of the volume of Ethereum is done on Solana, which is substantial because if you look at the market cap of Solana versus Ethereum, you're talking about something on the order of 30 billion versus 230 billion. So, a 7x difference in market cap, but the utility, and now there are other ways to measure utility, of course, but, if you took volume on decentralized exchanges as a proxy for utility across the chain, then the utility of Solana doesn't seem like 1/7 the utility of Ethereum. I think what's happening here is that people are valuing Ethereum based on the amount of fees that it's generating. When in fact, I think that the fees are a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator. The leading indicator when you're valuing something is how much usefulness that thing is providing. and then the money follows. So the first thing that happens is that a particular project becomes very useful. And then the money starts following that. If you're always following the money, then you're basically one step behind where you should be as an investor. So looking at Solana, I'm seeing that its usefulness is increasing. It is approaching, it's catching up with Ethereum. And eventually, I think the revenue per SOL token will catch up as well. So on Solana, I decided, okay, what are the standout decentralized exchanges that are operational on this layer one? And it turns out there are two. So you can see the purple and the yellow take up the majority of the space. And the purple here is Radium. And you can see recently this is representing the total value locked. So you can see actually Radium had a big spike in January. And yellow is Orca. And these are the two projects that you see have the largest trading volume as well on Solana. So the two decentralized exchanges with the largest volume on Solana are, again, the purple and the yellow, so Orca and Radium. So these are the tokens of these two dexes are the ones that I added to the PIF crypto portfolio. And in terms of valuation, because you have to know, when to buy and when to sell. In terms of valuation, what I did was I compared the market cap to the January trading volume for Radium and Orca, and they're basically similarly valued. And for reference, I compared it to Uniswap, which is the largest decentralized exchange on Ethereum. And if you look at market cap versus trading volume for Uniswap, it's around 10%. For Radium, it's 5%, and for Orca, it's 4%. So these two dexes seemed at least half as expensive as Uniswap if we were to accept market cap by trading volume as a suitable metric. And again, I think that trading volume is a good proxy, perhaps as good as any proxy for the usefulness that this decentralized exchange is providing. And so, when you're comparing, okay, how much is this entire project trading for versus how much is it being useful? I think that's a good way to figure out, how expensive is every unit of usefulness for this project. And it does seem like Radium and Orca are more attractively valued than Uniswap, especially considering that these decentralized exchanges are built on Solana versus Uniswap, which is built on Ethereum. And I think that Solana's future is more attractive than Ethereum's. Personally, I can tell you that I've used Radium and I've used Orca to trade, and I found them quite intuitive. I give a slight advantage to Radium, and it may be just the fact that I used Radium. I tested out Radium after Orca, so I guess I was more familiar with how decentralized exchanges worked. But I do give a slight advantage to Radium in terms of utility, and it also has some features that are more advanced, I think, than Orca. But they were both pretty easy to use, even for a beginner who doesn't have much experience in them. And so I do think that they have the potential for wider adoption and to reach much larger trading volumes than where they are right now. And let's compare that with where we find Uniswap in order to get an idea of what type of upside these different decentralized exchanges potentially have. So with regards to Orca and Radium, as I'm preparing this slide, they were both at around $250 million in terms of their market caps, and Uniswap is at 3 point around 4 billion. So much richer valuation, much larger project. So if we were to say, and now keep in mind that the highest market cap for Uniswap was actually north of 20 billion. So, we're comparing against the 3.4 billion that it is at today after it has fallen substantially with the rest of the crypto market. And the same with Orca and Radium. But if we were just comparing the market cap of Orca and Radium to the market cap of Uniswap, and we said, okay, we think that, Solana can eventually catch up with Ethereum. The dexes on Solana will eventually, on average, over the long run, have as much volume as Ethereum's dexes, and Orca and Radium will reach the type of volume that Uniswap has. And if we were to assume that, at which point they would be valued just as richly as Uniswap is, then the upside for Orca and Radium is close to 1200%. So a 12x from where they are right now. Now, if you were to say, listen, I don't want to just have one, Orca or Radium. I want to have, both of them in my portfolio. I want to add the Uber and the Lyft to my portfolio just in case the winner changes, and in order to diversify my exposure. In which case, you still have, and if you were to add the market caps of Orca and Radium together, and you were to say, okay, what's the upside if the sum total of the volumes done on Orca and Radium were to reach the volume that was done on Uniswap, what's the upside there? Well, it's closer to a 6x. Still pretty good. So this is basically the reasoning behind adding Orca and Radium. I have both names, as I mentioned, in our crypto portfolio. And listen, I like to keep things simple. For me, I understand decentralized exchanges. I understand their utility. I think there are the picks and shovels of the crypto gold rush. I'm not really sure which crypto project is going to win. I'm not sure which one will eventually, have the type of utility that gets it to, maybe 100 million users that are using it daily. It's really hard to tell at this point. A lot of crypto projects are reaching in terms of their utility. You read about their utility and you're like, well, isn't there like a centralized version of that service that is perfectly fine? So it's hard to tell at this point. I do think that there's going to be a broader utility than just say Bitcoin or just say um, uh, inter basically transactions. So something aside from just its utility as money, something larger than that. I do think that this will be the case for cryptocurrency, but what exactly it is, it's hard to tell. But what I do know is that regardless of who wins, there's going to be a lot of trading in these tokens. And I want to be part of a project that will benefit regardless of who wins, the sort of picks and shovels of the crypto gold rush. And that would be decentralized exchanges. I do think Orca and Radium are on perhaps the most promising layer one solution right now, which is Solana. I do have Solana in my portfolio as well, as I've mentioned on this channel many times. And so I figured Orca and Radium were good additions to our portfolio. Like I said in the beginning, if you enjoyed these types of videos, make sure to leave a like. I'd really appreciate that. If you want more knowledge like this one, more benefit, like what you got in this video, make sure to subscribe and become a PIF member for even more value. So with that, thank you all for coming. I love you too, brother. Wa alaikum salam, everyone in Liverpool. All right, take care of yourself. And until next time, assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all.